All right. So let me just say now, this begins our first quarterly Aetna Manor check-in. That's what I'm going to call it, Aetna Manor Council check-in, which is an opportunity for us to really leverage the great work that the Aetna Manor Revitalization Program has been doing and is doing to advocate for the Aetna neighborhood. And it's very important, and we appreciate it. I wish that I could double or triple or quadruple myself because we have, as you know, Miller and Glenn Ryan and part of Emerson, and there's a lot of different organizations. And so we try to keep track of what everybody is doing alongside the work of the council and trying to connect with the relevant city departments that actually run the day-to-day government. And so sometimes I know it appears that the council member, even myself, might be disconnected or distracted or what have you. But we're trying to juggle the operations of the council and ordinances and all the rest with a variety of challenges, right, that we face throughout the first district that we're trying to manage and handle while not necessarily directly being the ones who do the work that is being requested and needed. So we certainly appreciate your patience. I've been reading a lot of these emails and kind of trying to nudge here and there. But I know there's a lot of concerns. I'm hopeful that we can get through the majority of the concerns that you have outlined. Is it okay if I call you Penny?
Of course.
I want to get approval that you have outlined. And I know that some of these, the right people aren't here to answer. And I'm not one to start just talking and making up stuff. I want you to have the facts from the people who are responsible for those areas. So what I will do is in those cases, we will just have to give a written follow-up because I don't want to be just hypothesizing about what the answers are in some cases. So what I'd like to do, if you will, is to introduce the city department heads who are on the call. And they have received these questions in advance. And so what I would like to do is to start with, I'm gonna do this alphabetically. That's how I don't get in trouble. I'll start with Ms. Barber at Public Works and the Parks Department for now. What I'd like for her to do is to give an update in her area as it relates to Aetna and as it relates to the particular issues that have been raised. And then we'll have questions. And then we'll go to Ms. Millie Glenn with code enforcement and allow her to give updates on what's happening in terms of code enforcement and the staffing issues there and the questions that you asked. And then we'll do questions. Then we'll turn to Ms. Rachel Morgan Caesar, who we're all going to be calling a lot very soon because the snow is coming. But beyond snow, she does a whole lot more with general services, and we'll hear from her and then have questions. And then we'll have a plan for what our next steps should be. Again, I said I'd like to do this quarterly. So perhaps in early March, we can schedule a date to do this again, and likewise going forward. So let's start with Ms. Barber.
Okay, so I'm going to start with, I guess it's number 3 regarding the speed bumps. And I know there was some question as to the way they were put down and that some of those were missing. It is my understanding that what actually happened there is that was a part of a pilot program in 2017 for that area. There was not actually enough funding this year to actually do the speed bumps. When they put those down in 2017, I guess they were removable, which was supposed to be the best solution. They were not taken up totally in time, and therefore some of those were damaged. This year, we spent a lot of time trying to price those, and I think they were like $13,000. Then we were trying to get a contractor for them. We even went out and looked at what other municipalities were putting down to figure out what might be best. So we are still looking at some of that as we move into next year. I think there are some better options that we can probably use, but we just needed the timing. And we just put down what we could afford to purchase at that point to get something out there for Miss Love. Okay, so just remember the speed bumps are usually running us about $18,000 for installation. I have looked at some funding for next year that may allow us to properly get what we need, what is most beneficial, and what will work in that area. Okay.
May I ask a question? I don't mean to interrupt you, so just stop me if you're on a flow. I can come back.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
So one of the concerns that we've had was to make sure that we utilize whatever funding comes into the city that could be allocated toward the speed bumps, that is used efficiently. So to continue to install, remove, install, reinstall, remove again, it seems an inefficient use not only of funding, but manpower. That if there were just speed humps put into that pavement, and you don't have, and they wouldn't be damaged, you know, because the plows could easily roll over them, that it would be a more efficient use. And I understand, of course, we knew that that was a pilot program, and we visited it a couple of times, a couple of summers, and there's still the need. So the need had not changed, but rather than continuing to go into the city coffers to do it again and again and again, why not do a one and done, put those speed humps down, and we don't have to, you know, no more conversation about this or concerns about pulling it up and putting them back down. Is there consideration for that at all? Or can
there's some consideration for that. That's when I referred to, we looked at East Chicago, we looked at Lake Station to see what they were using, what they did. It just wasn't enough time for us to put all of that into motion this year without you having nothing out there. But that is the consideration, because they've got some, to me, would be better options. And exactly where we don't have to remove those every year.
Because we actually have a better option right there on Lake Street. You guys already did that.
We looked at that one. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So that is the direction we are looking in for coming up to install those for 2022.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. May I, Councilman, would you mind if we can unmute for, and I'll just wait for them to raise their hands as well, but I just wanted you to know, in case you see, because I got a couple board members on the line, that's Joey Kick and Roger Hayward. They're both on the line. If they would be allowed to, if they needed to ask a question.
They should be able to unmute themselves.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And
No
thanks, Ms. Barber. I appreciate that.
No, you're fine. Thank you. And I know there was a number 4 regarding needing some signs out there for the wildlife.
On 15th Avenue.
Yes, on 15th Avenue. Yeah. And we will, Vanessa James is on, so Vanessa James will look into those signs for us.
Okay.
Okay.
Ooh, and I got to tell you this, and I'm not going to belabor it. Good job, high five. You know, the what kind of hug, kind of putting up those signs to alert that there were speed bumps there. That was excellent. We hadn't had that before. So thank you so very much for that initiative. That was great.
Thank you.
And I ditto that, because 15th Avenue was with no charge except for tires. It was definitely a free theme park ride for far too long. So we definitely are happy about that.
Yeah, who do I send my invoice to for my axle?
The law department, but all I can say is good luck.
Exactly.
All right, I don't want to get us too far off track. Ms. Barber?
I think there was a question with 4, well, we talked about the signs there, and it was something, will a sidewalk and a bike trail be added? And I think Dave, our engineer, responded to that. I think he said there's a group working on the Gary Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan headed up by Deb. I think that's
Backus.
Yes. And they would be the best place, for that information, actually.
Yeah, we probably would. I get to sit on that committee as well. I just wanted to know if there's anything perhaps any of you would have known about moving that forward, even, and making sure that we're still players as far as the community is concerned, that we will definitely see some participation there, because that comes back into play for us with NERC and even Shirley Hines, because we're trying to meet those up with the NERC project. I'm sorry, not NERC, the Miller Tourism that's bringing those that bike trail through coming into Aetna, and then to meet up. I think that's Mitch Barloga. Is Mitch with NERC? Anyway, and then to meet with Shirley Hines, that our conservation partner.
Yeah, Mitch is the contact for that project, boss.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Raj.
Right. So that's probably an infrastructure project that's going to require some kind of grant funding, I would imagine, at some point, right, Ms. Barber?
Yes.
Okay. And it might be something depending on the infrastructure bill, if we ever can figure that out and it gets out of Washington, those kinds of activities where we can, look at, again, safety and walking, encouraging walking and all of that. So I think the answer is we just don't have the money, which is, I know, annoying, but we might as well tell the truth, right?
Yes.
All right.
I
Ms.
would
Barber?
encourage you. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I would encourage you to check with Mitch. If I'm not mistaken, the money is there for if we're talking about the trail that's going to end up over through Midtown. It starts up our way up there and then ends out over through Midtown. If it's the same one, I believe the dollars are there, but I could be mistaken.
No, actually, I think you're right from previous conversations, but we can discuss that more with Mitch.
Okay,
So
okay,
since
okay.
this has to, because we'll come back to that federal funding for even the sidewalks, because that was one of the things that Mitch said, that the city, perhaps when you guys actually make any other plans for that road, 15th Avenue, that the city would be considering those sidewalks. And then I learned that NERC does have federal dollars even for sidewalks on 12 and 20.
Yep, they do.
All right. Ms. Barber, I'm going to let you finish, and then we have a couple questions from Karen in the chat box that we can answer as well.
And
Okay.
then I also have one if I can get a minute when it's appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Barber?
Okay, so then there was a question that has a request been made of the state to repair the bridge and street closure closest to I-65. The engineer wrote a statement to the bridges are actually owned by the Indiana Toll Road. He was able to get them to grind down the massive humps on the bridge joints a couple of years ago. The toll road stated at that time the bridges and approaches were in good conditions and they did not have current plans for repaving. The rough pavement section between I-65 and the first bridge is Gary's. That short section is a concrete pavement with some of it overlaid by asphalt. Concrete cannot be easily and cost effectively resurfaced in the manner that asphalt can. It must be reconstructed, which is quite expensive. But Dave will work up a cost of an estimate for future paving programs. So we will work on that for you.
Excellent.
Right. Let's go ahead and proceed. We're going to let Ms. Barber finish, and then we'll take further questions.
I'm done, Councilman. I think unless I missed a question that you want.
Number 8.
Number 8. Okay, the Aetna Little League field is the city parks department planning to rebuild a new field house or replace the one accidentally demolished. I don't know of any plan to rebuild that. I am not sure what happened with the demolishment of that field house. I was actually hoping that maybe AJ would actually be able to assist and kind of get me to understand what actually happened there.
Yeah, so what I did reach out to AJ and say he was not available. So what we're going to have to do is get a written answer from him. And then at our next quarterly meeting, we can follow up on it. And the written answer will probably suffice. I will say this, one of the challenges is that we had limited funds to pick a park in each of our districts. And Unfortunately, the amount of money that would be necessary was far in excess of what was available to pick the clubhouse or do new construction in Aetna. So we had to look at Glen Ryan Pavilion because it was already there, but obviously needed rehab. But we're only working with under $100,000, far under $100,000 to do the rehab there. And so that's happening there. But I think we want to follow up and get an answer from AJ on this. And as we get more dollars, because that's going to take way more than $40,000 or $50,000 to do a good job at that location.
Well, Councilman, may I, because we weren't expecting just to have a new construction, that we weren't expecting to have a new construction. That building was just to be shored up.
Right.
And whomever the city or Parks Department had to come out to take care of that, demolished it instead. So it was supposedly accidental, but so we just wanted the structure back that we had. Of course, we can't have that back, but we just didn't want to be without that because the Little League is trying to move forward with their games, really to get that park up to code, ready for the kids to play on. And we just want to make sure that at least put us back to the condition that we were before that accident occurred.
How can I help?
And so Mr. Hayward, if I may, what we will have to do then is follow up with redevelopment, right, which controls demolition and the Parks Department to see what may be possible. I know there's no immediate plan to do any kind of, construction. Okay, Mr. Hayward?
Yeah, I just want to say first, I apologize for being late and thanks you guys for being here. So how can I help there? Okay, if somebody knows what you want there, and I can meet with somebody to find out what we want, get a material list, and Mr. Godwin, if you can, clear the permit process as far as that goes, I could certainly get a crew up there, and put together what we need for the kids for the probably for spring or the season. I'm not sure exactly when it starts, but I'm thinking April or something, or May. It shouldn't be that much of a deal, provided we're not digging and putting a new foundation and all that kind of. If we're just rebuilding what was there, that's what I wanted to say about that. So consider where I might fit is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Well, I know that that's Park Department property, and right now, and they have their own board, which is a whole other thing. But I know Ms. Barber is currently head of parks. I'll get your reaction to that, and thank you for offering those services, Ms. Barber.
What I can do is if somebody wants to see, I would guess, let's put together what we want or what he can offer. I will present that. There is a park board meeting that is going to take place the 14th of December, and I will definitely take it to park board. We appreciate the offer.
The park board meeting happens where, and is that open to like somebody like me?
Yes.
I'm not as pretty as I used to be, but
It's over at the Hudson Campbell building, and that happens at 10 a.m. on the 14th.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So what I'd suggest is that perhaps, Mr. Hayward, you connect with Ms. Love and AMRP and maybe put together a written proposal in advance of that meeting. And so therefore people can go into it kind of knowing exactly what you're offering and what the desire is of the community. And we can then
it would be contingent on the degree of building that you want. But we could do, Penny, we could easily do a generic, for lack of a better term, what we will do, that kind of thing. So thank you, Mr.
And I might say, Councilman, a better idea may even be to, and I'm not sure if I've got room on this executive session, may be to take this group into executive session with that proposal where they can sit down and talk to the park board members even before presenting it to the board at a board meeting.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I think that's good. So if you
Ms. Love has my number, she knows how to reach me.
I like you, Ms. Barber.
Thank you. So what I want to do now, because I'm mindful of everybody's time, and I know we have other presenters from general services and code enforcement and questions to get to. We do have some great questions here in the chat box, and I'll just read them off. I think most of these our public works and maybe a little general services. So Karen has expressed concern with dumping in the neighborhood, particularly on Aetna Street. She's concerned with open abandoned homes on 12th and Utah. Concerned with lack of streetlights in Aetna. I think 10th Avenue in particular has been an issue. Concern with burnt out home on 10th and Clay, which we've heard about. I know that Medea has spoken about it a lot, and we've been trying to figure out how we can get that on the demolition. It's on the demolition list, but how we can figure out how soon that can be done. Concern with no plans for economic development in Aetna. That would be a question for redevelopment. They are not on. However, I can say there is a plan with the comprehensive plan for the city. I think it's just a matter of timing and looking for the private individuals to come in and help the city work that plan. Okay, and then I will hold off on the potholes for general services. And then we have about the burnout home. Okay, so Ms. Barber.
Okay, which one do you want me to answer?
You can go through and pick the ones you think you're best equipped to answer.
Well, I'm going to ask about the debris and all of that go to Rachel. But as far as the street lighting, I think for the 10th Avenue, and Vanessa, you can correct me, is that an area that we were recently looking at to have quoted out to see what we could do with the lighting on there?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so we are working in that on that proposal there with getting it Western to see what we can do to get more lighting on that area there.
And I think along the issue of lighting and the questions that Penny sent, there was a discussion about, and Dan Vicari is obviously not on the call, but I suppose that he had promised to use the street lights that were on Lake Street several years ago to perhaps put those in downtown Aetna. So, and that David Wright of GPTC had promised to pass on a request for a bus shelter and bench. Now that's Sanitary District and Gary Public Transportation Corp. So, and I'm not sure about welcome to Aetna signs in terms of government doing those, but that's something that if we had the dollars for would come through Public Works. Is that right? In terms of the welcome to Aetna sign?
We could look at that. So Vanessa, I'll ask Vanessa now, you know, if we could price that with the other signs, because we were looking at some additional signs, Vanessa, so we could see how much that would cost us and what that would look like.
Okay.
We can do that.
And as it relates to the street lamps from Lake Street and the bus shelter, we'll just have to follow up individually with Mr. Vicari and Mr. Wright. But I wanted to hit that since we were talking about lights.
Okay.
You also have the burnout home on 10th and Clay. That's really a redevelopment department question. Is that correct, Ms. Barber?
I am not sure if that is a question for AJ or not.
Because Mr. Kuykendall sits under him, right, with
Yes,
demolition.
they do. Mhm.
So what we'll do is then forward this, and again, we're aware of the concern. I think it's just a matter of where it is on the list. And I want to be clear, as much as I wish, and I explained this to Medea on the phone, council members, and if I'm wrong, Rachel or Miss Marinita, Ms. Barber, Ms. James, the council members get to say, I want this demolished, and you all immediately do it. Is that how it works? I think people think that, right? But that's not how it works. Is that
Not how it
correct?
works. Not how it
Okay,
works.
I wish, but it's not. So those decisions are made by the mayor and the administration. And so we obviously pass it on. We ask, but I encourage you, and I've said it on the radio this morning, to reach out directly to the mayor's office as well. Because again, we do legislation and we try to connect community to the department heads, but we don't run the day-to-day operations of the city. And I know people say, why can't you get that demolished? Because they don't report to me. They don't ask me which house.
Why don't you give me
and there are a lot of
$6,000?
them.
I will.
All right. There's a lot of structures that we would love to have demolished, but we know there's also a legal process. You cannot, or at least should not, just go and start demolishing structures. There's sometimes a whole legal process you have to go through to ensure you know who owns it, that they've gotten proper notice, so on and so forth. So it's not as easy as I think we would want it or like it to be.
Mhm.
Okay.
I have a quick
So what
follow-up if I can. I'm sorry, Councilman. Okay.
go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay. Thank you. So, for about 10 years off and on, I've been maintaining June LeBroy Park over there. And then, it was late last year or early or late 2019. I had proposed a educational opportunity for the kids by converting, not really converting, but adding to June LeBroy Park the idea of the Underground Railroad system and how that assisted, those who were enslaved to go from, I'm not going to preach to the choir here, but to go from the, captive states to free states and those along the trail that harbored them and housed them and gave them rest in their journey. I had Legacy, or still have Legacy Foundation involved, NERC with Mitch. I was also on board. I know that we've had this conversation, Councilman, and I believe that Trent would also be on board with this. I want to know what it would take to push that forward, possibly, or if that's even something that I just believe it'll be a wonderful opportunity to have, an educational opportunity right here in Gary that could be visited by, students, bus trips, come out and, learn about the Underground Railroad because it's laid out. Well, you know how it's laid out. It's laid out like the United States. And it was a pretty simple plan, I thought, with some trails and some, advertisement. People could, put their plaque up to, to help fund it, who they are. And, somewhere along the trail, it could be at one of the houses where it might have been located, what state, that kind of thing. I think you remember, Councilman, this opportunity, and it just seemed to die. And I was wondering, is it dead or can I push to resurrect? And if so, who would be my go-to guy or girl?
Right. So I think it's a great idea. I think, again, that's owned by the Parks Department, right? I think. And there was some question around it, but I would say that it would go to the Parks Department, that they would, agree to support your endeavor. And of course, I know that funding would be required, but I would connect you with Ms. Barber again. I know she's in the process of hiring. The city's in the process of hiring a new park superintendent. Ms. Barber, I should say, has been doing double duty as both park superintendent and director of public works, which is probably impossible, but she's superwoman. And we certainly
Praise
thank
God.
her for doing that. But the Parks Department all by itself is a lot. So, but I'll refer that to Ms. Barber.
And if we could really have some conversation about that, I will move forward with the new superintendent that is coming with that plan to be presented.
I think that's the best thing.
Absolutely.
Once you get somebody in place, once they get oriented with all the whole terrain, as we're looking at each neighborhood or each district, they could then hear from Mr. Hayward and all those other folks with Legacy and others who I know have been engaged on it.
The other thing is too, Councilman, is that if I could
Thank you,
get
Councilman.
Thank you.
maybe a copy of the proposal, what I have done is to everything that was proposed from different groups, I am leaving that in a binder. I've started to create a binder for that new park superintendent to see what some of those projects that were offered were.
Okay.
So we could get a copy of that. I will add that to it as well. I had some things I wanted to see also. So that's how that came about.
Beautiful.
Well, that will be great. So what we'll do is we'll make that connection with Parks. We're going to connect with Mr. Bakarian and Mr. Wright about the bus shelter and the street lamps. And then you're going to have Ms. James check on the cost and the potential for getting welcome to Aetna signs.
Yes.
And then let's see what else here. The speed bumps, I think you are looking into the cost and a better way of doing that. As it relates to the burnout home on 10th and Clay, we're going to follow up with redevelopment and demolition to get a direct response from them on that. I know that there are hundreds of properties on this list. I know no one wants to hear that because they want the one that is closest to them to be torn down immediately. But we will try again to get an answer on that, as well as I see a question here about the Aetna School, which is owned by redevelopment. I know that they are wanting proposals from private developers, whether that means demolishing it and doing something new, which is probably going to be most likely. But again, that depends on who that private developer is and the funding that they have to support whatever their proposal is. Some of these questions relate to general services, so we will wait and allow Ms. Morgan Caesar to answer those. But I'd like to keep us moving forward. And we'll go now to Ms. Glenn with code enforcement. So Ms. Glenn, I know we've had some issues in code enforcement in terms of staffing. So if you could just kind of give an overview of where we are with code enforcement. And then there are some particular questions, I believe number 7, and probably number 6 and 7. What is the best way to follow up and get responses to the 311 request? And number 7, how often does code enforcement inspect our community for violations?
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Millie Glenn. I'm with Code Enforcement. As far as our staffing is concerned, I am bringing on 3 new code enforcement officers starting Monday. They will have to be properly trained. I have only been working with 3, and they have been overlapping and doing as best they can due to, death and losing some code enforcement officers. So that's why we were shorthanded, and I do apologize for that. Come January, I will be bringing on another code inspector. So we will have 7 total. We will have 1 for each district, and we will have a floater. That floater will go around and helping that inspector if somebody calls off work. Like today, I'm working with 1 because I have people off. That person will be able to fill in for the person that calls off, and hopefully we'll be able to keep a full staff. And like I said, hopefully come January, we will be up working fully. They do have to get the training before I put them out there. As far as the question for number 7, how often does code enforcement inspect our community for violations? Code enforcement goes out on a daily basis. They go out contingent to the 311 or complaints that they get in from the constituents, council, departments, and also, daily to weekly. We do go to court on a weekly basis. So they're out there, but then they have to do rechecks for those properties that have been cited. Code enforcement works on complaints from the citizens through our 311. And as far as the 311 is question for number 6, the best way to follow up and get responses, they are required to respond to their 311 complaints on a daily basis. So when they come in the morning, they are to check their 311s. They have 24 to 48 hours to respond back because they do have to go out and investigate. But I try to let the citizens know that they are in receipt of the 311. So they'll know that they are out responding to the 311 investigating. Once they respond, they usually let the person that sent it out, let them know that if it's going to be cited or what's happening with that case. It takes sometimes up to 30 days for that case to get in court. So usually I tell them to put the court date. So if you want to know what the time frame is and when it's going to court and what's going on with it, you can follow it up with that. And also we are going to be utilizing our new UBL. We're going to be incorporating our UBL. They have been training on that. And that is
that's Ms. Glenn, unsafe building law. You may want to say a little, I know we use those acronyms.
I apologize for those that don't know. The UBL is the UBL unsafe building law ordinance that we're going to be starting using for those that are not in response to the citations that we issue. it's going to help us to rid some of the properties of the violations. And that is done. We send the order out and they have 10 days to respond. And it goes through the law department. Then the law department takes over after that. They either are going to contract it out or get general services involved as to doing the cleanup. And then the cleanup costs will go towards that property. I think it's the taxes or however they're going to handle that on their end. But it's supposed to be a quicker way of us rid the city of some of these violations of people who have not responded to regular citations. We do ask the citizens when it comes to the dumping, if they can call our dispatch at 660-0000, of course 219. If you see anybody that is dumping, if you can take pictures or if you can record it, get a plate, that information, if you can call and get that to us, that would be very helpful. Our number here at the office is, of course, 219-806-6487. And if you call that number, each inspector has their own line. So if you call that number, it'll go directly to that inspector and you can speak to the inspector for your district. Now it's going to be changing once I get the new people. So we're going to be updating that as far as then which inspector is going to be in which area. So the inspector that we have for the first district, he will be fully dedicated now to the first district. And hopefully,
you want to give that's Mr. Brinston, right?
Yes, that's Mr. Brinston.
Spell that last name, please.
Brinston.
Excellent. Thank you. First name?
Robert.
Thank you.
And can you share his number for contact the appropriate way if people want to directly contact him?
Okay. Let me make sure I got his correct number because I got my new phone, but I don't have my they didn't get a chance to update my contacts. So let me go into. Okay, Mr. Brinston's number is 219-805-3141. But if you call the other number too, if he doesn't answer at his desk, that number rolls over to his cell phone number while he's out. As far as the 311, like I said, the 311 complaints, like I said, they have 24 to 48 hours to respond to those. If it's something that you're looking for more information, you can just call the inspector and he could probably give you more information what's going on with that property. Also, they out on a daily basis tagging abandoned vehicles. We're working with the police department now, and I think Rachel, we're trying to come up with a way of the boats and the RVs. We're having some issues with that, and hopefully we can get that resolved soon. Other than that, that's about it for the code enforcement.
All right, thank you, Ms. Glenn. Any questions for Ms. Glenn? All right, so make sure you take note of those numbers. One of the things that we lobbied for in the budget, something the council does control, is to ensure that every district had its own person. And one of the challenges in the first district, because of our economics, because we were basically funding code enforcement through a grant program, and because we have some higher wage earners and higher property valuations in parts of our district, we did not have a full-time person. Correct. So we were sharing Mr. Brinston with parts of the 6th district. Correct. Now we will have Mr. Brinston to exclusively focus on the 1st district, Miller, Aetna, Glen, Ryan, Emerson, which is a great thing. So yes. I'm glad we were able to get that done. All right.
May I, Councilman? I've got our lead for our 311 request on, I think she's there. Nichelle, are you still there? Would you have any question or comment about this? Michelle Doherty? Let me see if she's still there. If not, we can move on. I just wanted to make sure if she had any questions that I didn't ask. There she is.
I'm here. I put in the question about the potholes on DeKalb Street.
Okay, because Councilman's going to come back to that, I believe he said.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Nichelle.
Okay.
All right. So thank you so much, Ms. Glenn. That's very helpful.
Yes.
So we will continue to follow up. I know the 311 requests, our office gets those. We also, if you call the council office at 219-881-1315, my assistant is Miss Sherry Smith. And so we get those and we send them to, right, to the appropriate folks, whether that's code enforcement, general services, public works, what have you, to ensure that they are entered into the 311 system and that they are followed up on. Okay. Well, we'll now turn to Miss Morgan Caesar. You're kind of dark over there. I don't know what the lighting is like.
I think you may be getting a little, is that better?
There you
Okay,
are.
that's a little better.
Okay, okay.
We
Good
got to get you
morning.
a ring light over there or something.
No, I just have the glare behind me. Good morning, everyone.
Good
How's it?
Good
morning.
morning. So if
Great.
you could give us an overview, oh, that's perfect. Give us an overview of what's happening in general services, maybe a little update on the snow plan for
Mhm.
Aetna Manor in particular, and then the question about the pothole.
I did ask
on-
in the chat specifically where on DeKalb for the pothole. And if she could just place it in the chat, we'll get that scheduled
Okay.
for
Okay, I'll
early.
do that.
Okay. So having said that, and you're absolutely right, Councilman, by starting out with snow, that's our primary objective right now is to prepare for that.
We need potholes filled from 10th Avenue to DeKalb to 13th Avenue.
Okay, can you just jot that in the chat for me, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was doing it. Okay.
Oh, okay, no problem. So it's all about snow primarily. So far, we've had a pretty mild, I guess you could say, late fall, but as you pointed out, we know the snow is coming along with the ice and all that it brings. So we are working diligently to get our fleet prepared. We have a new salt dome. Ms. Barber has facilitated through her office. So we're excited about that. There is one piece to the installation that we're waiting for, largely due to kind of supply chain issues, but that's a big addition to our capacity for snow removal. We have added additional trucks to our fleet. So I know that's encouraging, compliments of the administration and the council. So we appreciate that. We still have needs as it relates to just being able to cover the vast amount of area that we have here in the city. So we're still working diligently to try to really get our fleet up to where we think it should be. And that's going to take some time. And I think we all know that, but we're headed in the right direction with regard to that. What snow planning does, one of the consequences or results of that is that it somewhat diminishes what we're able to do in terms of the other areas of responsibilities of general services, namely debris removal, right? Which is always an issue for residents across the city. And I want to kind of back up, and Ms. Love, you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I believe our final community-led, I shouldn't say final, we did 2 community-led cleanups in the month of October. And the one at the beginning of the month was in Aetna. And I believe that was Aetna Street from about 15 to 12 and 20. We had great participation. Ms. Love, I can't say enough about your work in that area. And the short answer, aside from what the city can provide, and as we all know, most of our limitations are constrained by capacity. But what we have is just really trying to strengthen the engagement of the residents across the city. And that's going to be a real big part of kind of just turning around the appearance and holding people accountable. We just cleaned up that corridor in October. That's not even, a couple of months ago. Maintaining those areas, and that's one of the ways that resident engagement through block clubs, neighborhood associations such as yours can really be helpful with that. The city is responsible for maintaining the public right of way. If I had my way, that would be the only place we would be operating, because that would mean that all other responsible owners were doing their part. And unfortunately, at this time, that's just simply not the case. And that kind of takes us in directions that keeps us off the right of way. I would prefer that we stayed on there and we would be able to kind of, do a lot more across the city. So deepen the engagement of the residents out there. The dumping, I don't know, and to me, to my mind, Councilman and the rest of the group, it's more than just an enforcement issue. I think it's a mindset. Obviously, there is this belief that it's okay to do, and I understand it, because if there aren't consequences, that's how people behave. So I see that as being a larger kind of cultural mindset shift, but enforcement, both code as well as law enforcement, because it is, to my mind, a law enforcement issue. In response to, I believe it was question number, the one about what you can do to just kind of improve the appearance and public safety.
Number 10.
Yeah, I find that to be such an appropriate question, because they are so connected. Grime and crime are almost always together, and I think one would certainly impact the other. So that's something that I hope the city administration and council can really kind of beef up the enforcement, because it's these quality of life. I do subscribe to broken windows theory of law enforcement. It's the little things, if you can address those, that you can, potentially eliminate some of the larger crimes. So it is the grime, it is the debris that's along our public spaces. I think that open the door for other kind of criminal activity and things, lighting, small things. So it's a collective of issues that lead to it. With our roughly 26 men and women of general services, I can assure you that they are doing all that they can, but it's a lot of work to be done. It can be very discouraging and demoralizing, quite frankly, not only for the residents, but for the workers when you do clean an area. And I'll go back to the cleanup in Aetna. So just constantly looking for ways to kind of not only scale our capability, but just to kind of help shift the mindset. There was, you guys recall the launch of the All In Gary campaign last year, and it is a permanent strategy. So we're working through the winter months to really look for ways to kind of build that out, get more people involved. It has to just become a way of life. And we know that these things take a little time. So I would ask for your patience, but at the same time, to remain diligent and vigilant, because I think we'll get there if we just, don't faint, I guess. But we will get there as we keep working toward those goals. We continue to road patch all year long. We're looking for ways to improve our road patching strategies, particularly in the summer months. So we've been working to try to come up possibly with some new acquisitions that will kind of give us a better and not only a better appearance, but to be able to be more effective. We do patch throughout the winter, and everybody knows that that is very, very temporary. So because it isn't treated with heat, and during the snow removal process, that gets disrupted very easily. Tree removal continues to be a challenge in the city. We're working to not only onboard some much needed equipment, but we've been lucky to be able to identify dollars to be able to use some contractors for removal and trimming. And like everything else, that's been primarily relegated to the hardest hit areas, but we need an overall just kind of tree strategy. The canopy in the city is very old. And, we have to be mindful of just, removal, particularly in this part. They have value. So looking for ways to, kind of save our trees if we can, and even replace them. as we remove them, because they are important to our environment as well. Let's see, anything else? I believe I've kind of touched on everything holistically. The plan, broadly speaking, for snow removal is to get it up as quickly and safely and efficiently as possible. There are always going to be issues. We ask for patience, but we like where we are right now. There's still work to be done, but we think that we are ready to meet the moment.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
All right. Questions for Ms. Caesar, Morgan Caesar, that she hasn't already covered?
Yeah. Thank you for being here, right, Ms. Caesar?
Sure.
I never met you. Roger Hayward. Anybody that's followed me over the years knows that Penny might know, but I basically cleaned up the whole community, Aetna, with the help of men from reentry and that kind of thing. I had dumpsters, placed on different blocks. We would clean up a block, and actually I got those donated to me. We filled up the dumpster. Then we would, if it wasn't full, then we moved it to another block, and it worked real well. So I guess where I'm going with this is I'm wondering if somebody could map the areas that are most hit. I know I've been through and I've seen, and it's really sad knowing what I've done there, and to see these piles. It's just like, and like you said, I believe it's a trauma thing. I believe it's an upbringing thing. We know that there's a contributor to illness and things like that, but I'm not going to get into that part of it. But it's sad for me to see those piles of garbage and stuff. And I'm just wondering if someone could take the time maybe to map the most distressed areas in terms of debris and trash. Okay, like for instance, we have a big pile. I'm not saying there is. I'm just using a hypothetical. We have a big pile at I don't know, 10th and wherever. If we can map those, maybe we come up with a plan to attack them. I do have I was blessed with a pickup truck that I converted to a flatbed. I wouldn't be opposed to bringing that up, as long as we have a place to take it. Once we had it loaded up.
Sure.
Who knows how often? Only the amount of participants would dictate that. Because obviously I couldn't do it myself. But yeah, I think we can get it back. I do, because I'm not boasting, but I had it there once. It can be done. I know it can be done.
I know it can too. And I got to tell you, I love your idea, and I would be happy to work with you personally on that mapping, because that's one of our commitments. That was one of the commitments of the All In, is that we would support community organizations that to deepen the engagement. So I like the idea, and you and I can perhaps connect and talk offline, so we can use our combined resources to do exactly what you suggested. And hopefully, I'm always looking for demonstration projects or pilots, because once we do that, we can replicate that across the city. So that sounds like a wonderful opportunity to do that. I will put my name and number in the chat, okay?
Wonderful. I was just going to send you mine. Perfect. Thank you, buddy.
Perfect. Okay, great.
Excellent, excellent. May I know we're running out of time, Councilman, but may I defer quickly to Eric Bird, who's from Shirley Hines Land Trust. We were just talking about the trees, and I'd like to talk about the natural landscape just for a moment, especially where it concerns Aetna Elementary, because Eric and Shirley Hines did a tremendous job when they came out and did a tour of that area. And Eric, if you've got a moment, if you will unmute.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody.
Hey, Eric.
Hey.
Yeah, just if there's opportunity where there's green spaces or natural spaces that the city is, wanting to have as, say, a nature preserve or trails or things like that, publicly accessible green space, but you don't necessarily want it to be a park. We're certainly open to protecting those kinds of community spaces. We did work with the city to preserve a piece of the dunes that was behind Nobel School as the school got sold off. So we're open to those, ideas, and even I believe there's property between the school and then the baseball field as well that maybe isn't well suited for development. I don't know what the economic plans are out there, but we're certainly open to discussing those things, coming up with strategies and plans to create green space. It's not super developed parks and recreational areas is not necessarily what we do, but it's like passive recreation, green space, nature trails, those types of things.
Excellent.
And then, of course, like things like those cleanups and things like that. I mean, if we can provide our services or there's certain collaborative work days, we're happy to help on those as well.
And also, would you just briefly mention the partnership we've already launched with the Field Museum?
Yeah, so we have a partnership. It sort of started, the Field Museum was doing a West Gary quality of life assessment, which they have sort of finished, and I can send to you if you like. And we're just looking for opportunities to work with partners. We had a large focus on doing improvements at Brunswick Park, and Shirley Hines manages Ivanhoe South over on Colfax Avenue. And we're just sort of trying to connect with other people within the city that, like Aetna Manor and like, Jeffrey Edwards and Faith Farms and all these people that are doing these great things, right? So you have a lot of sort of grassroots momentum, and just seeing where the crossover is and which partners might be able to support the other partners in what they're trying to do in each individual neighborhood. So we're happy to talk about things that maybe you want to see in parks, things that are collaborative work days. What we're trying to do is be more sensitive to what the community actually needs, as opposed to, what we've historically done is this is our mission, we come in and do this, right? And just trying to adapt our strategies and our abilities to fulfill what the needs are in the community.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Eric.
Mr. Hayward was talking about the Underground Railroad Trail and stuff. That might be something that we could work with through the Calumet Heritage Area and Calumet Heritage Partnership. That sounds like that perfect kind of thing of history and recreation and access and all of those kinds of things.
Right here in Gary, Indiana. Boom.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Eric, for all your contributions and support. Okay, I think Joey made a comment here about a tree, and I think Ms. Caesar, you got that, right? Did you see that in the chat box?
Yep, I got it.
Okay, all right. So here's what I'm proposing. In terms of number 9, what are the crime stats for robbery, drug traffic, and murder in our community? I was not able to get the police chief on or someone from the police department, but what we can do, and they probably would not have been able to turn that, they usually have the kind of citywide stats and maybe by police district. So we're in District A, which pretty much covers everything that is east of I-65. The city has 4 police districts. So I'm not certain they have the detail down to the level of the neighborhood, but what I will put that request in to the police department. We've gotten a lot of ideas and a lot of follow-ups. What I'm going to ask is that Ms. Morgan Caesar and Ms. Barber and Ms. Glenn, if you could, within the next week or by the end of next week, just give us a quick update on areas where you've made commitments for progress, whether that's meeting with Mr. Hayward or following up on any issues or questions that have been presented. What I will then do is, and include Ms. Love obviously on it, because then she can distribute that to everyone in the group. What I will do is reach out to Mr. Vicari, Mr. Wright, with the Sanitary District and Gary Public Transit respectively, as well as Mr. Bittner and Mr. Kuykendall at Redevelopment for the updates on their progress with demolition and economic development opportunities in the Aetna neighborhood. So let's make sure we do that. I want to remind everybody, if possible, and I said I want to do this quarterly, if we could put down or pencil in Friday, March 4th at 10:30 a.m. And if we need to change that or do it earlier or later, we can make adjustments. But I always like to lead with the next step. So we all have a timeline to work toward. So Friday, March 4th will probably be a foot deep in snow. Maybe not, but we'll do it via Zoom. And Friday, March 4th at 10:30 a.m. in 2022. Sounds funny to say that. Just as a reminder, the cookie walk is this evening on Lake Street, and that's for everybody, wherever you live in the city of Gary. From 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock p.m. You buy a $10 box, you go to all the restaurant stores, businesses, and collect cookies as part of the holiday celebration. There'll be a Christmas tree lighting at St. Mary of the Lake at, I believe, 8 o'clock p.m. and caroling at 7 o'clock p.m. So be sure to come out and support. St. Mary of the Lake is having a Christmas bazaar this weekend. December 4th and 5th during pretty much the daytime, 9 to 3, 9 to 4 hours. Feel free to come out and support that. I did see the comment you made, Penny, regarding the JJ's answering the phone, JJ's in Miller. You know, it is a challenge, right? I mean, I think a lot of businesses that use for marketing purposes, whatever name they think will give them the greatest notoriety, right? Or whichever one has been marketed a lot. We know that there's been a lot of decades, right, of marketing Miller and Miller Beach and all of that. And so there might be some businesses who do that. You know, we really can't control what they do, but I certainly hear you because I was ready on the Hard Rock to really go after them for not calling it Hard Rock Gary, which is what they do with every other Hard Rock. They call it the name of the local city in which they operate. And we certainly know that US 20, in terms of the commercial side, is Aetna. And to that point, we're very excited about what Pastor White is doing at Beyond Four Walls. Many of you have probably seen the development. The beams are going up right on the south side of Lake Street, south of US 20. You may have already heard it, but you see the big sign there, Harold's Chicken, Phenomenal Ribs, Chicagoland Popcorn, Steel City Bakery, Little Coffee Cabin, Lighthouse Whole Foods, a barbershop, and a laundromat. So that's 8 new businesses that will come when that facility opens in late spring, early summer. So that's something we can definitely look forward to, which makes it even more important, right? That the Aetna area is getting the attention that it needs because we want to build on that, right? We want to see residential growth. We want to see other commercial interests come in and to help grow the area and continue to make it more attractive for those who currently live there and for those we want to come move in and invest. So those are our updates for now. What we'll try to do is get answers in writing as it relates to the economic development and redevelopment and just work toward continued progress. I want to encourage people, if you are not vaccinated, to consider strongly getting vaccinated, getting boosted if you've already been vaccinated. We know that it doesn't prevent you necessarily from getting COVID, but it certainly helps your symptoms to be milder if in fact you do contract COVID. So I know there's different opinions about it, but I've been boosted right at the Gary Health Department and certainly encourage everyone to. Thank you, Joey, for your positive spirit and support, and really appreciate that. And thank you, Penny, as well. We've had, I think, a successful meeting, and now it's all about the follow-up. So thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Dee Barber, and thank you, Millie Glenn. And we're going to bring your colleagues, some of your other colleagues will be ready, Penny, at our next meeting. So if there's nothing else, thank everyone for their time. This meeting has been recorded. I've already asked our media department to package it in a YouTube shareable fashion so that you, Penny, and I will as well be able to share it with the community. All right, if there's nothing else, everyone, please be safe.
Yes.
And have a happy holiday. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
You as well.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Bye now.